Hello and welcome to the SC Playbook podcast for round 26. I'm your host, Tim Williams. It is head-to-head NRL Supercoach grand final week. It was the penultimate round of the NRL Supercoach season. A new overall champion to be crowned next week. Now, I'm hoping that overall champion is a bloke sitting next to me right now, and it's a very, very special guest on this week's podcast. No, it's not the Supercoach Spy. He's a man with 16 Wallabies caps. He's a former Rooster. He's the co-host of Talkin' Sport. Most importantly, though, he is ranked 47th overall in NRL Supercoach. Brett Papworth, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Timmy, how are you?
Mate,
great to be here.
Great to have you.
Finally.
Oh, I know. It's been a long time coming, this one, mate. And
well, I've tried to stay under the radar because, people want to ring the show and start talking Supercoach, and Hughesy just knocks it on the head. But anyway... But
20 years with Talkin' Sport, yeah. Paps, and as you said, immediately on the show, the blokes you sit next to. Not a lot of Supercoach chat, but everyone loves it.
Yeah, they do.
Surely the callers come in.
Some do. We get a couple.
Yeah.
But it's something I do, and the boys know I'm into it and have been for, more than a decade. God. Anyway, and this year it's my best year so far. I've had some good ones. I always finish thereabouts, top few thousand as a general rule. Not always. And I finished 300th once, but this is next level. This is almost stressful.
And Brett, I knew you were well set up, but I've just seen your team there. The carnage is reigning at the moment. There are going to be so many teams that are short on players. You are very well set up. I don't want to put the mocker on you, but I said you're 47th overall. Now, my favourite thing about your Supercoach story this season is it's something that I try to reinforce to listeners each and every week. You would not believe the amount of people that message after round 6 and round 8 and round 12 saying, I'm down, I'm gone, I'm 20,000, I'm 15,000, overall race is done, so I'm focused on head-to-head. And I just say, you do not understand how quickly this game can change. Now, you went from 13,000 overall to 600th in the space of 4 weeks.
Yeah.
13,000 down to 30th overall in the space of 8 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
That says it all to me.
Well, it's crazy. It's crazy, and you don't see runs like that. Normally it's, if you're lucky, a couple of green arrows and a red one. My ranking just kept halving through that bye period from about round 11. And I made some plans, and I scored terrific through the bye rounds. Got lucky round 15 when I went straight captain on Reuben Garrick, and he scored 169 at rookie.
Mate, you don't listen to this podcast too carefully.
And
then,
he was in the centres, and I knew he was, but I thought there's points in the Eagles this week against the Dolphins team that had a tough 14 rounds, and I thought there's points here, and I know he's playing in the centres, but he's your goal kicker. Anyway, he scored a hat-trick. And so I've been lucky with captain's choices. I got on SJ early. I got on Ponga early. As soon as it was apparent he was back at fullback full-time.
So what, you didn't pay over $1 million for him like me? That must have been very nice.
I paid $500,000 for Kona.
That's painful to hear.
And I traded... Sean Johnson in for the first bye, round 13, and I had, I think, 16. And so he was trading because he'd had a couple of good weeks, and he ended up not even being in my top 13. But then he went nuts. I had 17 players for the round 19 bye. So I had 3 bye rounds where I was basically 1,100 out of 13 blokes. And I lost 2 of them. Head-to-head.
I want to say, Brett, kissed on the you-know-what. However, speaking to your pre-show, there's a lot of method and a lot of strategy behind the way this has all panned out. We'll get to that shortly in a few of the strategies you've implemented this season because it's some really good stuff. Firstly, before we get really stuck into it, I do want to have a quick chat about your career, mate. Now, the Wallabies was the big one, 16 tests for them. You played in the 1987 World Cup. Any highlights that really stand out for you?
Well, yeah, look, I played in some fantastic teams. Rugby was something people cared about back in the day, and we were good. We won the Bledisloe at Eden Park in '86, under Alan Jones. They had the Grand Slam tour in '84.
Winning the Bledisloe Cup is a very foreign concept to my generation, Brett.
It is. Well, look, every year goes past, and every time they play at Eden Park, they say the last time Australia won at Eden Park was 1986.
Oh, shit, you were in it.
And we played and won, and it was, certainly a highlight. I mean, ridiculously, the World Cup in '87, I played a World Cup semi-final against France, and it was seesawing lead, 6-time change of the lead. France scored. Serge Blanco scored in the corner on the bell to win. They reckon it's one of the cracking games of all time. Guess where we played a World Cup semi-final '87? Concord Oval.
You kidding?
I'm not kidding. And it was an amateur game, so of course we get nothing. And then we had to play. I was thinking about this the other night when the Matildas had to play off for third. Our World Cup had been in Australia, but it was a jointly hosted World Cup. We had to go for a third and fourth playoff against Wales to
New Zealand.
Rotorua.
Yeah.
And we had blokes going, I'm not going. Roger Gould said to Jonesy, I'm out. I'm not going.
Stinks like eggs.
It was
meaningless game.
A meaningless game.
Yeah.
Anyway, but great times. The Roosters was awesome, except I just kept hurting myself. I spent a lot of time sitting with coaches and did a lot of pre-seasons, didn't play a lot of footy.
Concord Oval would have been, because they've got the world's largest post, and to cater for those helium-filled Gilberts, they just needed extra length on the post. They had no other options. Campese kicking them, they would have sailed over.
Look, you're young, aren't you, Timmy? Helium-filled Gilberts, we played with leather footballs back in the day.
Leather-filled, water-filled leather balls.
Anyway, yeah, great times. And I'm off to the World Cup in France in a month's time or so, for a month, so it'll be nice.
Brilliant.
But rugby league season to finish yet.
Yeah, and mate, you mentioned you did make the move to the eastern suburbs. Must have been a big decision, I'd imagine. Why the decision to jump ship from rugby to league?
Money.
Because rugby didn't come professional to mid-90s?
Yeah, mid-90s. Yeah. So we... And it's bizarre. And when I look at all the talk now about CBAs and all that sort of stuff, we played the All Blacks, we filled stadiums, we played World Cups. The Australian Rugby Union at the time had maybe 5 people working there.
Wow.
And so someone was making a lot of money, but we didn't get a cent. The International Rugby Board daily allowance was $50. And people were taking leave without pay from jobs to represent their country and getting $50 a day. And there was a rebel tour mooted to South Africa about that time, end of '86. We were regarded as the best in the world. And South Africa, having hosted the Cavaliers and the Australian cricket team. And so we were all set to go, and it was big bucks. It was big bucks. Anyway, it fell over.
Devastating.
It became political, and so we never went. But in my head then, as a youngster, 23 I think I was, in your head you've already spent the money, right? And then when it doesn't come, it's like, oh my God. But I'd had league clubs talk to me for a little while. So I got picked up by Bullfrog Moore and Phil Gould in a limo from my work in Chester Hill. I had dinner with Keith Barnes and Warren Ryan at a beautiful Italian place in Leichhardt. And went and talked to Nick Politis and Ronnie Jones at the Roosters, and they'd had a good year this year before, so I thought they were on the up. Anyway, as it turned out, I broke my arm first year, and the Bulldogs beat the Tigers in the grand final, so I chose the wrong option. Anyway, there you go.
Mate, so they pulled out all the star power to get you over there, and you did have one of the all-time luckless runs of injury from pretty well the day you got over and broke your arm the first time.
Yeah, shocking. I broke my arm twice, both against the Bulldogs, strangely enough, and then I had my jaw smashed down at Wynn, or whatever the ground was called back then, and then I did my knee twice. I did 2 ACLs and then called it a day.
Yeah. That's right. Not a bad resume to run off and work with for the next 20 to 30 years.
Yeah. It was fun. It's great. I mean, I suffer now physically. I wake up sore every day and whatever, but the mind still works for the moment.
Good for now.
Yes.
Enjoy it while it lasts, mate. Awesome to hear, mate. Brett, very happy to have you on the show. Kuma Stallions last week, 1,308 points. Sadly, we are not 47th overall. We had a small fall to 5,141st. So not a massive movement there. A little bit disappointing. We'll get to it, but very well set up this week. The carnage is coming in. We're ready to make a few moves. Here we go. Mate, you dropped a little bit last week.
I was 31st. And 1273 for the week dropped me to 47th. I had Greg Marzu on the bench. But my logic was sound, right? And if I'm honest, I blame Davey Moali, who I've had all year and been unable to get rid of. So I've got this auto-emergency problem. And there was talk of Munster missing the game. I only had Gagai and Marzu who played after him.
Yep.
And I thought, well, I'll just sit one. I'll play a Sarko, keep one of my Knights boys on the bench. If Munster pulls out. Anyway, and as it turned out, Munster played, and I wish he hadn't.
In hindsight, he got his 28 or whatever.
And, of course, you know how it works. You've got when you've got depth and you've got to decide who to leave out, you always leave out the wrong one, right? And so I chose Gagai just because he was right side against the South's left side, and, I thought Campbell Graham, good defensively on their right. Anyway, and he scored a hat-trick, half-time?
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. I was swearing.
Tough watch.
It was. So it's cost me plenty.
Anyway, mate.
Supercoach.
Matt,
I've had a lot of good luck.
Yeah, well, hopefully more to come, mate. The Unlimited Group, SC Playbook Unlimited Group, $1,000 up for grabs for the winner of that raging poll, Bobby. He's still there, but he has dropped to third place overall. Here come the Bears. Glenn into fourth overall. The boys aren't far off the lead, so hopefully them two, along with Brett and whoever else is in there, can be fighting that one out. On today's show, key takes from Team List Tuesday. Our topic, the big one this week, Latrell Mitchell is not fighting his ban. The Bunnies on the bye this week, a 1-week suspension. He will miss next week's game, gone for the rest of the regular season. Who's the best replacement for him? Because there are a bunch of great options. We're also going to do yet another deep dive into captains. There is a stack of terrific options to go for this week in head-to-head grand finals. So we'll chat about those and give our verdicts on that. Our round 26 trade and skipper plans and a few listener questions to wrap it up. Guys, obviously there's only 2 weeks to go in the season. But if you have enjoyed what SC Playbook has done this season, obviously a lot of time and effort has gone into it. So the subscription package is still available. If you want to support the site, $20, you can jump on to the SC Playbook website, jump onto the menu, and there is a tab in there to do that. Now, mate, let's get stuck into a little bit more about your team because I'm intrigued about it. Now, as I said, 47th overall. You mentioned before the show, Reuben Garrick looks like he'll miss this week. James Tedesco's out. There's a few other big outs. I think there'll be a lot of teams out there struggling to field 17. You mentioned your luck's in. You've managed to dodge a bit of the carnage.
Yeah, I have. I haven't had any Souths guys. I haven't had the big guns anyway all year. So I've avoided that. I haven't had Teddy since early in the year. Yeah, I mean, I've got some options this week with some trades left.
3 to go?
I got 3 left. The issue for me, of course, is what happens next week. Parramatta, I've got Hopgood and Gutho, and if Penrith rests, whoever, I've only got Cleary, so it's not a massive issue.
Can handle that, and everyone else does as well. So
yeah. So look, well placed, but I mean, there are plenty of options.
We'll get to your trades a little bit later, but is it a foot to the throat approach? Are you looking for some pod moves, some point of difference plays to finish the season, those low ownership guys? Or are there some guys that you're going, you know what, I'll play a little bit more conservatively. You think I've got trades, I've got depth, I'm well positioned. How are you approaching the last 2 weeks?
Certainly looking for guys with high upside, definitely. I mean, there are, you could go to big gun backs, high scoring backs, I suppose, but I don't have the jewels in the second row, unfortunately, to make some of those things work. So I'm still thinking it through, but I don't have Dallin, who I think on the right edge has 2 good matchups to finish.
He's got great matchups.
So that's probably a given. And the question is whether I go Garrick or Gutho or, so I've got options, but I've got plenty of depth. And Katoa is another one I'm looking at if I decide to trade out Preston or Hopgood. But I'm tempted to give Hopgood another crack against his old club, I have to say. And I might mention it earlier, I'm I'm sort of tempted to sit for feeder. It's a gamble, but I've made it a strategy this year not to pick blokes who frustrate me and want me to and make me want to break the television. Right? I pick guys who I love watching. So, Reece Walsh and Kalen and guys who you just know are up for it all the time. So I haven't picked anyone who, and I didn't have Fafita till round 23.
Jeez.
So and he can be frustrating, although he's remarkably consistent.
Very frustrating prior to this season. He's mended that a fair bit this year. Yeah.
He has a bit. He's been really good. So eventually I caved, and I've got him. And against Melbourne, anyway, I'll probably play him. Don't get me wrong, but there's going to have to be some risks taken, especially if you're a couple of 100 points from say top 10. So there'll be some punts taken. The question is where I take them. Because there's a lot of captaincy options, and that's the most important thing. That's the thing that I think I have got them right more often than not, and that is so key. Yeah,
and you also mentioned that you haven't overloaded on one club, and that's been around, particularly around the bye schedule a little bit.
This year's different, as everyone knows, and because there's a club on the bye every week, so I made it a point just to have a really solid mix of everyone. Don't load up on players so that in any given week you've got depth. I've nuffed nobody out apart from arguably Munro from Souths, who I actually thought was going to continue to play. So everyone else, I've been lucky, but I had a couple of dark horses through the middle of the year. I made a decision early to go a hooker that'd get me through the origin period. So, but two blokes who've flown under the radar who have been so good for me were Cody Nikorima, who I've been able to flick from hooker to 5'8", etc.
He was about sub 300k early on as well, wasn't he?
And I had him at 300 and a bit. And he has just been the gift that keeps on giving. Now, I haven't always played him, but through that bye period, he was awesome. And the other guy I had Reece Robson, and then Freddie decided to pick him and threw my plan. Nightmare. So I had to go elsewhere. And I went with Jacob Little, who no one owned. No one. Literally nobody owned. Once Griffo left and they started picking him as the starting hooker and he was playing big minutes, I reckon I played him 6 straight weeks and he averaged 60. And it was like, just thank you. I mean, little things. It's not great. He's not a big scorer, and he's not playing minutes now.
He did a job, mate. He did
an outstanding job. So little things that you just go, wow, got lucky.
Yeah, and sometimes it is those blokes. They don't need to necessarily have the big tons and go bonkers for you, but they're blokes that you pick up at a low price and they just get you through. And a perfect one, this example for me this season, I should say, was Phoenix Crossland, who the exact same.
I
didn't necessarily play him for all these big scores, but I picked him up dirt cheap at a time where 5'8" was in a real tough position and no one knew where to go. It freed up cash. He earned money. He scored well on the major buy rounds, or at least one of them. And I'm like, not a superstar, but geez, he did a job.
And playing big minutes.
Yeah.
He's just getting better and better.
He is.
They've got a good one there.
They do. Mate, let's get stuck into Team List Tuesday for round 26. And the first one and the big one for the week, Ryan Papenhuyzen. Little Pappy. Do you get a bit of big Pappy? Or?
No, well, I was. That's coincidence.
Back in the day, you might have been Little Pappy.
I was Pappy all my life, still am.
Yeah, the original
so
Pappy.
Nice to see Pappy back.
Yeah.
Good Sydney boy too. He was a rugby boy at Oak Hill College originally.
Yep. Named on the extended bench. What are we expecting here?
Oh, well, that's got to mean he's getting game time, doesn't it? I mean, how would you know whether they start him or come off the bench? But they've got to get game time into him before finals.
It intrigues me because if it's earlier in the season, you absolutely play him 20 to 30 minutes off the bench, ease him back in. He's played 2 80-minute games in Sunshine Coast and a 40-minute game for the Falcons leading in. But because there's 2 weeks to finals, I know these blokes in this spine have played together, but you want to get as much time into them as you can. So do they come in and just give him 80? Melbourne are not locked into 4, but looking pretty good. They should be winning this weekend against the Titans.
They'll win this week.
They should win this week. So that's what I mean. Do you just get Papenhuyzen 80 minutes with that spine?
What do you do with Meaney? I mean, they've had some centre issues. Whether they play him But Remus Smith's locked in. I don't know.
I don't know either. Look, my suspicion is that Pappy starts off the bench, maybe plays 40 to 50 minutes, and they do it like that. But as you said, it's a bit of a guessing game. You're adding the goal kicking there. You'll be very nervous if you're a Nick Meaney owner. In saying that, he could play 30 minutes against the Titans and score 120, so...
Well, it'll be a high-scoring game, you would think.
Yeah, there'll be points.
Yeah.
Anyway, big one to watch out for. There's still no Isaac Tungo at the Penrith Panthers, which means Tyrone Peachey, another bloke who just did wonders for me this season. God bless the Peach. Retains that centre spot. Brian Toto returns. No Mitch Kenny, no Scott Sorensen still. We thought they were rested last week. They were, but still not back. Ryan Madison starting on the edge. Thank God. Brett, Supercoach bias aside, I could not believe when they were down an edge player last week, they decided to move Jermaine Hopgood to the edge, who's played middle as far as I know his whole career, and played Madison off the bench. So order has been restored. I'm a Madison owner and I really need to play him this week. So he starts on the edge, Hopgood lock. Sean Lane has interestingly been named on the bench. The final Eels game of the season. Seems a bit of a nothing game to come back for, but so be it.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. I played Hopgood. I figured he'd on the edge play 80 and be at his offloading best and maybe get more. And that was the case. I'm not sure he'll get 80 playing in the middle. But he's playing his old club, so I expect him to be, a typical workaholic.
He'll do his job. He'll get 50 to 60 if he can throw any attack on top of it.
Yeah, Isaac Tungo's an interesting one because what's it been, 4 weeks now?
At least, that has been dragging on.
So that to me says it's not a sprained ankle, right? It just doesn't make sense if it's not something that is more serious than we know. Because he's valuable to them. Super.
And isn't that just the joy of and reward for effort, sitting top of the table and having this depth? You go, we don't need to rush to make top 4 or top 8 or whatever. We're setting the top 2. We're not going anywhere. We'll just bring him back when he's ready to go. Crazy. So, anywho, at the Cowboys, Jeremiah Nanai is out, as is Sammy Valamai. I might have missed something on the weekend there. Both of them boys gone, though, which handful of owners have probably more so Valamai in that one. It's a big blow because they had a really good matchup this week with the Dolphins. Kieran Foran back for the Titans. Good news for the man you mentioned earlier in David Fafita, who just unlocks him. Thankfully, he scored that belter of a try off a set play against Penrith last weekend. Sammy Walker returns for the Roosters in the halves. Drew Hutchinson, who has been terrific and settled that team down, has been dropped. I'm gutted for Drew, and I'm surprised they did this.
Yeah, me too. I suspect they need to show little Sammy a little bit of love. Maybe it's a long-term play, showing some love now. Maybe
it reeks of long-term play.
It does. Hutchinson's been excellent, particularly, and getting better and solid. I'm not sure how Sammy Walker, the way he plays, impacts Joey Manu at 1. Joey's. I cheer. It's sad that Teddy's not playing, but I love Joey at 1 from a Supercoach point of view. Yeah,
it's once we put our thoughts out for James Tedesco and being concussed, which we never want to see, and we look through this through purely Supercoach coloured glasses.
Yes, indeed.
The rugby league guru, my greatest rival, owned Tedesco, and I think we've both got Manu, but from a Supercoach perspective, of course, Manu to fullback, very happy about it. Sammy Walker, I actually don't love it for Manu. The beauty of Hutchinson was there were too many really relentless attacking unit, the Roosters, so many superstars. They had no one just to pull it all together and just calm things down. I think Drew Hutchinson was that man. Sammy Walker, he comes in and he's not that man. He'll throw lofted balls. He'll go for chip chases, and I just think it'll take away from the quality ball that Manu gets regardless. I still like Manu this week.
Well, I do too. He'll be, I don't know, one of them. VC maybe, or captain, I'm not sure. It's a good matchup. I also like Swali'i on the wing against the Tigers out on the right. So
Manu to fullback hurts that.
I know, it does a bit. It does a bit, but you've got and Sammy Walker and Keary don't complement each other as well as Hutchison and Keary, or Hutchison and Walker even.
Yeah.
they're reasonably similar. Runners. Anyway, that's why they're paying Trent Robinson the big bucks.
Yeah, trust him to get it right. He hasn't this season so far, but maybe now's the time that he turns a corner. So
two wins to finish the year, though. They might be in finals. That'll shock a few.
Brendan Piakura remains on the bench for the Broncos. Now, the average rugby league fan, Brett, would see that and it wouldn't even catch their eye. Nothing. As a bloke with about 17 or 18 players this week and a crack at the VC loop, and Brendan Piakura, who last game before the bye played 30 minutes, shit.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
No, I hate it.
You got him?
No. And I haven't had him all year. And thankfully, my auto emergency nightmare is on the bye, so I'm in good shape. If someone, the VC loop will work for me this week. I probably won't be playing, Nicarima, maybe Bateman, Mulatalo.
Half our audience have just turned off the podcast. I'm not listening to this bloke anymore. Gee, that's a good position to be in.
Yeah, except the ones you don't play are the ones who score. You know what I mean? I'm tempted to play Nicarima. I have been the last couple of weeks, and I just haven't. You go with the name, proven, tried and tested, and anyway.
Back the gut. You always got to back the gut. Jack White on the extended bench for the mighty Raiders. Not too much Supercoach significance there. Josh Schuster dropped. Reuben Garrick, broken back, named on the extended bench. There you go. I've got it on Good Mail that he won't be playing this weekend, but they've named on the extended bench maybe through.
Well, he doesn't have a broken back then if he's named on an extended bench.
It's I saw the NRL physio throw something out today, something about can't do more damage, but it's a pain tolerance thing, but really high pain tolerance. So I don't know, but regardless, I would be very surprised if Reuben Garrick does take the field this week. And there's going to be questions about him from Supercoaches all week. And look, he's thereabouts, so maybe, but I don't expect him to play this week.
No, me either. Daly will kick goals, so, not a bad thing for those, if there are any, who've got him.
DCE, very sneaky on 2 good games to finish. Jackson Hastings has also been named to return from injury for the Knights. Now, mate, let's get stuck into our first major topic of the night, and that is Latrell Mitchell replacements. Now, we're going to look at this from both a head-to-head and overall perspective, namely because head-to-head, people in their grand finals this week, they only care about this week. They don't care about round 27. Who is the best player that's going to score the highest this week? And then, of course, overall players, 2-week play. We looked around 27. We'll go through them all, give our verdicts at the end. Start with Reece Walsh, coming up against the Canberra Raiders this week. Melbourne, and that is in Canberra. And then they've got the Storm at home next week.
Yeah.
Now, goal kicking with Adam Reynolds out. There was a quote from Walters today saying, I reckon he's doubtful for the Storm game, that being Reynolds. If Reno can play next week, we won't hold him back, but it just depends on how his recovery goes. With his injury history, with where the Broncos are sitting on the table, it sounds like, it's in his own words, Walter's own words, in doubt for next week. So it could be 2 weeks of Reece Walsh goal kicking at a really good price at around $660K. I really like Reece Walsh.
Yeah, particularly this week. And apart from the brain explosion game where he scored 20-something, and I was playing him, apart from that, he's not matchup proof, but he's so electric. It doesn't. A bit like Ponga on the weekend against what I thought would be a pretty good right side Souths defence through Campbell Grant. Kalen just carved him up, and Walsh is Walsh is a similar player. Great matchup this week. Not so good next week, but if he's kicking goals,
changes a lot.
Yeah, it does a bit.
And you know what else? Melbourne.
Yeah,
I don't know. They don't scare me that.
They're not the machine they've been
yeah.
defensively,
So, like Walsh at Suncorp, he could do plenty of damage to him there.
I think this one is Raiders at hard and fast Canberra Stadium, and he's going to hopefully step up even greater without Reynolds there.
So, liking Reece Walsh. Dallin Wateni's at Lesniak, plays the Dragons at home this week and then the Dolphins away next week. I pulled Brett, one of my pin-up moments for the year. There haven't been a heap of them, so you take the wins when you get them. 5:30 Friday afternoon, two little beers in the belly to get me excited. I went Alex Johnston to Wateni Zalesniak. Dallin had a double within about 15 minutes, and I just went, yes.
Yeah.
So, and I was looking ahead to this week. I'm like, well, I'm going to have to trade a bunny anyway with how many numbers I was going to have. So I went in the early trigger. I had a feeling that they'd put one on. Banked me about an extra 100 points.
Yeah, good trade
move,
that.
So very happy with that one. This week, though, dual CT dub fullback. So we've added him to the fullback conversation. Look, I think if you can get Dallin in this week, he has the matchup against the really poor Dragons left edge. They're conceding 52% of all their tries. Really, really soft.
The Dolphins isn't brilliant either.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Yeah, so he's got a couple of good matchups, and I'm more than likely trading him in this week.
Yeah. Like, I think if you can get him at CT dub, I would just do it. If you can, what about at fullback? We're about to mention a few really good players. How does he match up against those blokes?
I'd play him at fullback at a pinch. Probably got choices, because if you've got Asako and they who are dual anyway, or if you've got the money for Reece, which I don't think I do, but I haven't had haven't had Dallin all year, so he's probably coming in for me.
Yep. Scott Drinkwater versus the Dolphins this week. He then has the Panthers away next week.
Yeah.
Now, Drinky is a very intriguing one.
He's a good 1 week play.
He's a great 1 week play against the Dolphins. Now, the Cowboys have been pretty poor the last few weeks, but they are playing for a final spot still. He is goal kicking. He's dropped to a more affordable $874,000. I think he's...
And it's grand final week.
It's grand final week.
Yeah. And he's electric. I mean, he's a freak. He's had an amazing year. I mean, if you're trying to pick, the top 4 or 5 fullbacks in the competition, and you're leaving Teddy and Latrell and these blokes out, I mean, seriously, there are so many good ones. And Drinky's, Ponga, Walsh, they'll do me.
And Drinky's averaging 84. You now add on the goal kicking that he picked up, I believe it was last week. If you add 10 to 15 to that, he's averaging close to 100 points this year with that matchup.
Yeah.
Big one there. The issue as a 2 week play for overall players is that Penrith matchup next week where they just going down to Penrith. As we said, Penrith, Ivan Cleary looks to be staggering his restings as opposed to that big, probably round 27 resting that maybe a few of us are anticipating, which means it could be a tough day out in round 27 for the Cowboys. And Drinky.
Yeah, it could be. And you'd imagine, Penrith just strangle you. I mean, they just do the basics, their defensive line speed, their spacing, everything. They do it faster, better, longer than anyone, right? And, I mean, I am playing overall, but I am in 2 grand finals this week too, so I'm...
The curse of doing well, you have both to worry about.
I'm going the longer-term play, and round 27 is going to be important overall, and... Look, if I get beaten by a Drinky 150 or something this week, I'll be furious. But, hey.
But then if he comes out and scores 20 against Penrith and it wins you 50K as the overall champion...
I'm too far from...
You'll make amends.
I'm a long way from 50K, I promise you.
Yeah, we'll see. Things can change. You're a prime example. Things can change very quickly. If you can go in the space of 4 weeks, about 13,000 spots... In the space of 2 weeks, I reckon you can go 40 spots. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's too many similar players, I think. But anyway, we'll see.
Chance, Nickel, Klukstad, same draw. Dragons, Dolphins. It's almost rinse and repeat for Dallin. Yeah. My concern with Chance is with his head knocks, do they rest him next week? I think he's... They may not. They may not, but... He's had 3 this season. Do you risk losing him? And I know you can say this about any player on the field. Anyone can get injured. Anyone can get a head knock. But Chance has a big history of them. If you got 4 this year, it could be like a finals campaign done. I just think there's a chance that he sits next week.
But yeah, possibly. But I think if they're going to rest anybody, it'll be Tohu and guys like that who've done big yards. Interesting, Jackson Ford they've sat this week on the bench, and he's pretty much started every game.
Yeah, Mike's been giving a bit of a spell.
I've had him all year. He's another warhorse.
He's a warhorse.
He's just... haven't always played him, but he's been solid.
You know what? He's been an inch from scoring about 10 more tries, as you'd know, as an owner. I haven't owned him all year, and he's the one that I've always wanted, but just like, it hasn't quite come to fruition. If he was on the right edge outside Sean Johnson, he'd scored 15 tries this year.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the Warriors more than likely the ones. I think Tohu Harris, Adam Fanua-Blake, big chance at rest next week, particularly Tohu. And then Dallin as a winger, I think he would be safer. Chance maybe. Sean Johnson is one that, again, with his injury history, you don't want to jinx anything. He's been terrific this year, but next week, like he literally didn't kick goals the last 2 weeks because he had a tight groin or something.
I'm not sure what that is, but that's annoying as an owner.
Yeah. Terrific as a non-owner.
Look, Chance is a good player. Look, he's had a lot of footy off this year anyway. I mean, in terms of rest.
Yeah.
You can hurt yourself going up for a high ball at training.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not sure you're going to rest him fearful of a head knock. You're going to rest a guy who has some niggles or has had just a crazy hard season, and I'm not sure he's had that. And if his head's good, he's key to them in terms of their rhythm in attack, the way that they sweep, and particularly with Dallin on the wing. I think he's key, and I think he'll play. But how often are we wrong as super coaches?
Oh, all the time. You this year, not often, but on the average year, I'd assume, like the rest of us, plenty.
Lots.
Dylan Edwards against the Eels and Cowboys. Look, now he is one. Eels at home this week, Cowboys at home next week. Looks a great play. He's one that I do expect to get a rest in the next 2 weeks because we've seen Ivan Cleary stagger these restings. He's played, every game this year? Very close to it.
And works his butt off.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not certain about him. He's had his big weeks, and I love him as a player and his involvements, but he's capable of punching out a 30, or 2 or 3 of them in a row even. So he doesn't have the ceiling of the others, I don't think. I mean, he has gone big, but not as often.
Especially in a side where Luai, Cleary, their entire outside backs, so many of them can go big. It's hard to get all those attacking stats. Whereas some of the blokes we've already mentioned, they can just rack them up.
Yeah, I mean, if we're ranking fullbacks as replacements for Latrell or Teddy or whoever, I've got 4 or 5 in front of Dylan Edwards.
Yeah.
I'm
with you, mate. And just the last one, there's going to be too much uncertainty around Meaney. Let's say Ryan Papenhuyzen comes in and starts at number 1 against the Gold Coast Titans this week, and you've got the money to bring him in. Could you do it?
No. No chance. But I think Meaney, regardless of what Pappenhausen does, I think Meaney will play 80. The issue will be where.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they'll drop Warbrick after a hat-trick last week, but...
Maybe one of the centres.
Yeah, maybe.
Sefe, Tonema, PR.
He's been excellent, Meaney. He's been a really good buy for the Storm.
Oh, great headache for bellyache to have there.
And I suspect he also keeps the goal kicking.
Meaney.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Oh, well, he's done an excellent job, and I'm not sure Pappenhausen's a sharpshooter in the Adam Reynolds mould.
Did kick in for Sunshine Coast, but, Meaney's been hitting them well.
Yeah. I mean, it depends what role they see for Pappenhausen in finals.
I know.
If they need him to, under pressure, kick some goals, then he'll kick goals. But,
Anyway, probably I'm with you. Even if there's going to be people tempted to pull the trigger on Pappenhausen because they'll get excited. I couldn't do it either, mate. Not a chance.
Apart from he costs a bomb.
All right. And he costs a bomb, just to add to that. All right, verdict. As a 1 week grand final player, who's your pick there?
1 week, Drinky. Scotty Drinkwater gets my nod over Reece Walsh, but there's not much in it. I mean, it's toss a coin because they both could go big.
Yeah.
I think the Broncos, even without Reynolds, will be... Although Ricky gets that team up when they're under the hammer, doesn't he? I mean, they can turn up. And plus, I think it'll be a big forward battle. You'll have Tapani and Papali'i going up against all the, Carrigan and Haas and all this. So that's where the focus will be. So Canberra will be fired up, and that might get Brisbane on the back foot a little bit more than...
Could be Jared Croker's last ever home game for the Mighty Raids.
I mean, this game surprises us every week, right, in one form or another. So I'd be more inclined to think Drinky has a big day out against the Dolphins than Reece is a certainty against the Raiders.
On the same, mate, I've got Drinkwater just ahead of Reece Walsh. 2-week play. More probably overall focused players. Does that order change? Does anyone else come into contention?
Well, no, unless you want to play Dallin at fullback on the right edge against a really good matchup. And this will impact my trades this week, but I'm leaning towards as a 2-week play Reece Walsh, just because I can see Drinky coming out and scoring 30 against Penrith in Penrith and just being, as you said, strangled out of the contest. As a 2-week play, I think, Walsh.
I'm thinking Walsh as a 2-week play. Yeah. Big decisions.
But a grand final's a grand final, right?
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Just for the head-to-head focus players, the overall focus players. So, mate, we'll leave to them to make their mind up. Now, guys, as you know, Paddy and George, Mortgage Choice, SCW, can help you with a number of things from wedding finance to debt consolidations, but one of their biggest services is education, especially when it comes to first home buyers looking to get into the market. The boys have let me know that with the new financial year coming into play, that the government has released a heap of new incentives to make it so much easier for first home buyers to actually buy into their first place. If you want to know more about these and how much you can borrow in general, go and speak to them. Usually it's seeing you $129, but if you mention SC Playbook, it's completely free of charge. If you're sitting there right now thinking about getting into the market down the track, you've got no idea what that means, take the step, make it a reality, flick the boys a message on Instagram at PatandGeorge_SCW or give them a buzz on 02 9521 1611. Also, their new podcast, That'll Teach Ya, is now up and running. Look them up on Apple, Spotify, and on all streaming platforms, plus TikTok and Instagram. Have a listen to that. The boys will be on the show next week to talk you through the podcast itself. Now, mate, second major topic of the week, captains. Huge. 2 weeks ago, we had 5 of the best matchups that I'd seen in a long time. They all went sub 82 points. Could not believe it.
Yep. Which means you didn't get hurt.
Nobody got hurt. Yeah. Nobody made any ground. It was ridiculous. This week, we've got 1,000 matchups. Now, a few of them we've already spoken about. We've spoken about Scott Drinkwater, Reece Walsh, a couple we haven't. Nathan Cleary against the Parramatta Eels. Eels a bit down on troops. Gone for the season. They do get up for this Penrith game, though. We know who they always get up for it.
They do. They've actually got a pretty good record. They aim up and they get very physical, which they'll need to.
And we doubt them every time, but they get up for it. I'm doubting them this time. Do they get up for it?
I look at Penrith. Parramatta aren't going well enough for me with Moses missing, although Dylan Brown's been excellent. Just quietly. He was really good. Let's assume Penrith put 24 points on the minimum, right? Well, you'd have to think Cleary's got his hands on 2 or 3 of those tries and the goals, and he makes 20 tackles. I mean, he's hard to go past him. But there's other good options if you want to take a punt. I mean, I'm not big on the Melbourne matchup. Munster and Grant's had his moments, but Munster just doesn't quite. He's not doing it for me at the moment, and I'm an owner. Yeah, so Cleary I like.
Yeah, I don't mind him. Thursday night games are just, they never get the job done. Never get the job done. As I said, Parramatta do tend to get up for it. They've got the bye next week, so maybe they've checked out early. I'm more inclined to say they'd be going, no, one more game.
Parramatta, they've got Mad Monday come Friday.
Yeah.
Friday, this week.
They do too.
It's over. It's holidays. So it's leave everything out there. Take a few Panthers with us before we go sort of stuff. It
is. It's a Penrith, our rivals, are probably going to go on and win the comp. They beat us in front last year. Let's make them hurt.
Yeah. So, but that doesn't mean Cleary doesn't,
no,
score a couple or. He's unlikely to, but he's got his hands over much of what they do.
Yeah, I think there are better matchups. However, as a VC option, you know, it potentially.
Hard to captain Thursday night.
Hard to captain Thursday. But in a week like this where the majority have a pretty good crack at the VC loop, a great VC option, Sean Johnson against that Dragons weak edge. Now, goal kicking is a big factor in this. We don't know yet if he's goal kicking. Hopefully we do know this by kickoff on the weekend. As a non-owner, hopefully he's not. But Either way, I like Sean Johnson as a captain this week.
I wish I knew that he wasn't going to be kicking the last 2 weeks, because I may not have traded Nico. By the way, I traded Nico for Cleary.
Yeah, Nico. So it's a very fascinating race, this Cleary, Nico, Sean Johnson. From a few weeks back, Sean Johnson got the early points and Nico clawed a few back on the weekend.
Well, I thought Cronulla were done, right?
Didn't we all?
So it was that simple. I just looked at them and thought, well, that's it. They've
Yeah.
run their race. Well, I mean, they're back from the dead. They're a serious footy team. SJV, the Dragons, let's assume they score 36 points. I mean, if he's kicking goals, that's 6 goals, right? So, I mean, 20-odd points, let's assume he misses a couple. I mean, it makes a difference, the goal kick.
You're a brave man to assume he misses a couple.
Yeah, sure. But, yeah, look, he's probably a better bet.
Yeah.
He might be a good VC option if you've got the option.
I've got Sean Johnson ahead of Nathan Cleary as well. We've spoken about Scott Drinkwater. What about Cameron Munster / Harry Grant in that matchup with the Titans?
I'd be happy to go or take a punt on Harry. Not so much Cam Munster, but I mean, there will come a time where Cam springs to life, and I don't know when that will be. I mean, it might be a final.
Yeah.
But it's a good matchup, right? There'll be points in this game. I mean, the Titans can score plenty and they're good to watch, but they also leak. And Melbourne, I think, are finding a bit of form.
We had a stat that came through from Matty Broom during the week, post-podcast last week, and it was talking about Munster against weaker opposition. I'll get it up shortly. Just quickly, his last 3 games against the Titans, 147, 111 and 91.
Right.
Now, while I'm getting that up, I'll throw to you. I'm going to say that as good as that matchup looks, I'll be avoiding it. You add in, it's only one player, it's an older player, but Kieran Foran's impact to the defence of this side and the team in general is phenomenal, I've found this season. So it's a no from me, but I can see why people would be tempted by Munster. The man you mentioned before, Joey Manu against the Tigers, tempting at fullback.
Yeah, I'm big on Joey at fullback. He may even carry my armband this week.
Ooh, enticing.
Yeah. He's one of the guys I like. He's one of my faves.
What about Kalen Ponga, who's just putting up one of the great Supercoach runs we've ever seen? Sharkies, another Sunday afternoon game in the Hunter. What do you reckon?
Well, he's as good a bet as Cleary and any of them. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. I didn't expect him to go ballistic last week, and he was terrific.
I captained him last week, watching that game, and I was like, every time I went back to check the score, I'm like, is this thing going to update or not? He finished on like 90. He tore them to shreds.
Yeah, no, he did. He absolutely did. Now, let's assume he favours the Knights' left edge against the Sharkies' right edge, which is what, Ramian, Katoa, Nikora. I mean,
the edge matchup isn't great.
That's correct. So, I mean, he can play both sides, and they've named Hastings, which is another one. Adam Clune was awesome last week, I thought. He just really played his role, underplayed it, did the simple things like Hastings does. I think Hastings, if he plays, and I've got no idea whether he does, I think that he's probably better for Ponga. But look, the Sharks have surprised me the last few weeks. They're finding a bit of something. So I don't expect the walk in the park that the Knights had against the Rabbits, who've been really disappointing.
I like Kalen Ponga this week. As I said, his left side is his strong side. I think that probably the right, but he's also a fullback. Like he can also set up tries on the right edge, but all his damage has been on the left. On that right edge, bodes really well for Dane Gagai owners. And if anyone else does own, or anyone else, if anyone owns Dom Young out there, you got Gagai, you got Young.
No.
Great matchup for Dom Young.
Yeah, well, he can score him in bunches too.
Yeah. He goes up in fours, Dom Young.
I've also got Ronaldo, who is one of those guys. Oh.
You mentioned you buy blokes who are easy to watch and don't frustrate you. Oh, mate, how's he in your team?
I know, well.
He's dropped 2 over the line with no one on him this season.
Yeah, and when he's gone big, I haven't had him.
Oh.
Isn't that the way?
Cameron Munster this year against top 8 teams and bottom 8 teams in the last 5 years. Matty's taken out the 3 games he played under 70 minutes, also using the final ladder for each year and current rank. Against top 8 teams last 5 years, averaging 75.78 in 52 games. Against bottom 8 teams, 71.36 in 38 games. A fair bit lower against bottom 8 teams. This was done before the weekend's game when everyone was hyped up for the Dragons matchup and he scored about 28 or so.
Yeah, I know. I had him.
Incredible. And to make those stats even better, there was one real outlier year. The only year in the 5 years that he scored more against bottom 8 was last season, and he averaged 94 against bottom 8 and 70 against top 8. So every other year, he's like significantly he just gets up for big games.
That is true. I also think Melbourne are playing more to Jerome Hughes on the right with Katoa, and that seems to be their dominant side. I mean, Jerome Hughes is. I mean, no one talks about him as a half, but he's.
I threw him in last week as a super pod at 0.03% ownership.
No one owns him.
Nuts, but be a brave person to have traded him in for having traded out one of those halfbacks.
No, of course.
Yeah.
But I think what I've noticed from Melbourne is that Munster, I don't think, doesn't appear to be getting as much ball. Seems to be going elsewhere. So, and I don't know, Josh King's not playing either, which is a really solid middle and someone who's been there pretty much big minutes every week. So that changes the dynamic too, a little bit.
Yeah, it does. Just looking at, so tries scored, what do we got? There you go, mate. Yeah, so 37% the Storm on their right edge, 35 on their left edge.
There you go, not much in it.
Yeah, but I would like to see, in and around when Munster and Hughes and whatnot have played together because they both missed games here and there. Hughes missed a stretch, so. But, yeah, interesting one with Cameron Munster. And the last one to touch on, Nicho Hynes against the Knights. We mentioned Kalen Ponga. What about Nicho, who doesn't go poorly too often?
He's remarkable. Just remarkable. Even in games where, I mean, Trindle has taken so much play from him and really looks to be sort of equally his team, yet Nicho still gets it done.
Still finds a way.
Yeah. I mean,
except for when I captained him 2 weeks ago and Trindle did everything.
Yes. Well, I think the other week they scored 36.6 tries or whatever, and Nicho had a hand in none of them.
Everyone went VCLC on Clear on Thursday night. I went the bold move, brushed it. Nicho, 1.3% captain, and he scored about 50 and just... It was tough viewing.
Yeah. Well, but unexpected. It's an outlier, right?
But it was also the week that the same thing happened to Kalen Ponga.
Yeah.
Same thing happened to Nathan Cleary. Like, it wasn't alone.
You didn't get hurt
as
badly as you might have been.
Mate, hypothetical, we own all these players. Who's your... And I would also say, I really think the majority of coaches out there this week are going to have a pretty good crack at the vice-captain loophole. Sitting at around 16, 17, 18, maybe 19 players. You're a bit of an exception with your numbers. Let's say you're vice-captain, you get a bit of a crack at that loophole. Who's your vice-captain? Who's your captain out of those lot? That lot, I should say.
Yeah. Look, I would probably go Cleary or SJ, VC, and all my faith in Joey.
In Joey, Manu, we trust.
That's it.
For myself, I would go vice-captain Scott Drinkwater and captain Joey Manu. Guys, the SC Playbook podcast has partnered with Better this season, producing markets of our own. Last week, Clint Gutherson, 50-plus official NRL fantasy points into Mike Acevo, anytime try scorer. No good. This week, Scott Drinkwater, 60-plus fantasy points, kicking goals into a Kyle Felt double with Valamai out. I'm expecting Felt should go back to that right edge. 2+ tries, $7.20 you get for that. The link to that market will be in the YouTube description or across our socials later on in the week. If you're interested, please use those links as it lets Better know that we sent you. What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Now, mate, we have touched on our skippers for the week. We've flirted with our trades. What trades are you thinking?
I've got 2 Eels who aren't playing next week, so I can and they got the Panthers, right? So, but now I've got Garrick out, so Garrick or Gutho for one of the high upside outside backs, probably Dallin, who I don't have.
Yep.
And I've also got Preston, who I could easily flick for Eli Katoa, who is in a bit of a purple patch. But I could also go both my Garrick and Gutho for a couple of, maybe a Toto or a,
Some good positions to be in there. Yeah. Some good options.
Yeah, I've got options and I haven't decided yet. I've been, haven't, since teams dropped, I haven't had enough time. But it'll get a bit of study. I do spend a bit of time on this. Just don't tell anyone.
Never, mate. Not many people listen anyway. It's all good. My trades for the week, it'll be between two players, and it'll be Latrell Mitchell out, as we know, missing round 26, round 27. I have two trades left coming into this week. So Latrell to either Walsh or Drinkwater. I don't know which way I'm leaning.
Are you in a grand final? You're playing overall, right?
Yeah, I'm overall. I'm in a couple of grand finals. I'm in about 1,000 leagues, so
course,
I don't.
Yeah, of course.
I'm in a few.
Yeah, I understand, but it's not.
Put it this way: I'm in no cash league grand finals.
Yeah, no, right. No,
yeah.
So it's an overall play.
It's an overall play.
Well, you just answered your own question.
Yeah, Reece Walsh, I said before. So I'm leaning. The other thing with Walsh is with that last trade, it also banks me a ton more cash for that final trade, which could come in handy.
Yeah, look, I'm really keen to keep one or two up my sleeve for next week. Yeah. I mean, I won't have too much Parramatta issues, and I've got good depth. But if they rest Harris, Johnson, Cleary, I mean, there you go. That's a hole for a lot of teams.
It is. So, yeah, so for my captains, as I mentioned before about Drinky probably being my best vice captaincy option this week, look, I might... It's a hard one because if I don't go down that Drinky avenue, it might lead me towards Joey Manu, vice-captain, and I hate it because I hate doing it against my own team, especially in a big game. But Reece Walsh against the Raiders, I don't want to do it, but...
Are they okay without Reynolds? Is he the same player without Reynolds? Is there any data on that?
I do not know. We will find out. It's funny because I think he's definitely less effective because of their positions Reynolds puts him into. Yeah. But does the goal kicking counter that?
Yeah, but he tends not. He tends to be at his best in his own half and midfield rather than red zone.
Yeah,
because they cover him better in the red zone defensively. But when he's got a bit of space, between the 220, I mean, he's middle of the field. He's electric.
Give him an inch, takes a mile.
He'd be the quickest over 20, I think.
He's unbelievable.
In the comp.
Those first three steps, he goes whack whack.
Yeah. And there's some really quick blokes in this game, but his ability to just go whammo is...
And speed's not all about going from here to there. It's the footwork that allows you to do that.
The change of direction and the speed and the acceleration.
And that's Reece Walsh. And Ponga similar as well. But
Ponga is very similar. Who's your Australian fullback if you had to pick one on form?
I'm Kalen Ponga.
Yeah, it's the best.
He's just so well-rounded.
Yeah.
Whereas Walsh is unbelievable and them two are going to tussle for a long time. In fact, I think they'll find a way to get them both in time. But Walsh still has errors in his game. He's still maturing as a footballer. Whereas Ponga.
Who's Billy picking next year at fullback?
Oh,
I mean that's.
I genuinely don't want to think about it. It sickens me.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Mate, let's wrap it up with a few questions. The first question is from, where's he gone? Your son, James Papworth.
Oh.
And he says, where is he taking me for dinner when he brings home the cash? What's the go-to? Where are you taking him, mate, when you're 50K richer?
Oh, look, James is a bit of a fine diner, man.
Is he?
Yeah, he likes the finer things.
Yeah, right.
So it'll be somewhere good. We might go, I don't know, Josh Nyland's fish place somewhere. What is it called? St. Peter?
St. Peter.
Paddington? Yeah.
St. Peter's.
He's probably been there, though I haven't.
There you go, mate. There's your answer. He was also spraying you in the WhatsApp group, and he was saying that taught you everything you know, and then he got you into Supercoach and all sorts of things he's throwing at you.
Yeah, I know. Look, I do. I don't do a heap of online stuff, Supercoach, right? Because I tend to like to be clear in my own mind.
Back yourself.
But I do run a lot of stuff past him, I have to say.
Now, I do the exact same. I'm fortunate to be around Supercoach people all week on podcasts with articles, and it's great, but very confident in my own decisions, but you always just need one person to run it by just to have someone in your corner.
If this was you, would you do this?
My one's the spy. Now, I'm going to do this, but just to be sure, Spy.
Yeah.
Now, question from Matt Caltabiano. Hi, gents. Can only pick one of Manu at fullback versus the Tigers or Dallin against the Dragons. Who do you choose? If you had one of those two, Manu or Dallin this week?
Oh, jeez. I think Joey is more likely to put up a big score because Dallin needs tries
He
and
has to
multiples.
score. Joey doesn't.
So the chances of Joey making 30 runs is higher than Dallin scoring a triple.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree. I'm Joey Manu.
But Dallin could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question from Matty Broom. Thoughts on Jason Saab as a point of difference punt? The next 2 weeks, Dogs and the Tigers. He just scored a hat-trick against the Warriors. Bit of a flyer on Jason Saab.
I don't know how Kohler goes at fullback without Garrick. I don't know what impact that has on their team. But it's a good punt because he can go big. He can have his days out. He's got a couple of good matchups, particularly next week.
Yeah, I don't like Kohler at fullback, provided he does line up there. Probably ball playing for Saab.
Yeah, he's a runner.
You'd argue Reuben Garrick is a runner too. And the other thing, the thing in his favour is he's on the edge of Daly Cherry Evans. Those flat balls, his cut balls, and he just can find his winger very well. So I wouldn't do it, but it's a super pod. Question from our very own Desi Creek, the 2019 Supercoach champion.
Wow.
For Mr. Papworth, league or union?
I'm a rugby man.
You're a rugby man. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a rugby man.
It's been nice having you, mate. But
to my bootstraps. I'm the president of Eastwood Rugby and have been for 15 plus years. So I spend all my Saturdays at the club footy in Sydney. I follow the league, obviously, and I love it. And in terms of watching, no question. I cannot watch rugby, rep rugby, I haven't watched a Super Rugby game in 3 years.
Yep.
And Test rugby's hard to watch. The officiating, the rules, rugby league every day of the week, because their best players get opportunity in league. Rugby's best players don't.
Okay. You've got it worked out because suburban rugby's where it's at for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I love it. And it's
true.
tribal and it matters.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure rugby's in a great place, although I am going to France for the World Cup.
That being said, mate, another one around Manu, but there's going to be a lot of similar questions because there's a lot of great buys. James Foodie, if you'd have Cameron Munster or Joey Manu this week?
Manu,
I'm Manu. Mate, I'm all in on Manu. Manu at fullback is just a beast.
I'm not sure that he's probably failed there, but gee, it's rare.
He had one there early this season around Origin. Teddy got a rest and from memory didn't go too well, but as you said, it's rare. And the Roosters were also in all sorts at the time.
Yeah.
Question from Jay Toa. John Bateman to Ellie Katoa. Sideways or lock it in?
Lock it in.
Yeah. The upside of Katoa.
Yeah.
Bateman won't let you down this week, but
I've got Bateman, but probably not going to play him, but I would play Katoa in a heartbeat.
Yep. And lucky last question. Chris LaRossa. Dallin Wateni Zalesniak. Would you be selling to get Dallin in Cody Walker or Alex Johnston?
AJ?
Me too. I like it. Beauty, mate. Brett, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast this week.
Great to meet you guys. See you, some other time.
Hopefully,
now I know who you are. See, I feel like I know you anyway.
We've worked it out now.
Yeah.
Hey, mate, when you're the overall champion in 2 weeks' time, we'll do a season recap pod. I think Clem's on it, the Spy's on it. We'll have you right here and we'll have your first interview as the Supercoach champion.
Dreaming.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for tuning in and good luck this weekend.